Standard mounting heights for electrical switches in rooms are typically 48 inches or 122 centimeters from the floor. In bathrooms, the standard mounting height for switches is 48 inches or 122 centimeters from the floor, or 36 inches or 91 centimeters above the bathroom sink, whichever is lower. Standard mounting heights for receptacles in rooms are generally 12 inches or 30 centimeters from the floor. In bathrooms, the standard mounting height for receptacles is 12 inches or 30 centimeters from the floor, except for receptacles installed near the bathroom sink, which should be 20 inches or 51 centimeters above the bathroom sink. In kitchens, countertop receptacles are generally mounted 12 inches or 30 centimeters above the countertop. Floor receptacles are generally mounted 12 inches or 30 centimeters from the floor. Appliance receptacle mounting heights vary depending on the appliance. For example, refrigerators are typically 48 inches or 122 centimeters above the floor, while microwaves are typically 18 inches or 46 centimeters above the floor. It's important to note that these are general guidelines and may vary slightly depending on local electrical codes and building specifications. Always consult your local electrical codes for the most up-to-date and accurate information. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to consult a qualified electrician if you're not comfortable working with electricity. If you choose to do the work yourself, be sure to turn off the power at the breaker box before starting any electrical work. Always use the proper tools and safety equipment, such as insulated gloves and safety glasses. Double-check all connections to ensure they are tight and secure. After you've completed the work, turn the power back on and test the circuit to make sure it's working properly. If you're unsure about any aspect of electrical work, it's always best to consult a qualified electrician. They can provide you with guidance and ensure that the work is done safely and correctly. Electrical codes are in place to protect people and property from electrical hazards, and it's important to follow them carefully. Failing to follow electrical codes can result in serious injury or even death. It can also result in property damage, such as electrical fires. When planning your electrical work, take the time to research the relevant electrical codes and make sure you understand them. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask a qualified electrician for help. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a widely adopted standard for electrical installations in the United States. The NEC is updated every 3 years, and it covers a wide range of electrical topics, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and equipment installation. The NEC is not law, but it is often adopted by state and local governments as part of their building codes. This means that if you are doing electrical work in a jurisdiction that has adopted the NEC, you are required to follow its requirements. Even if your jurisdiction hasn't adopted the NEC, it's still a good idea to follow its recommendations. The NEC is a comprehensive and well-respected standard that can help you ensure that your electrical work is safe and compliant. Here are some additional considerations for mounting electrical switches and receptacles. Firstly, consider the accessibility of the switches and receptacles. They should be located in places that are easy to reach and use. For example, switches should be located near doorways so that people can easily turn on the lights when they enter a room. Receptacles should be located in places where people are likely to need to plug in appliances or other devices. Secondly, consider the aesthetics of the switches and receptacles. They should be installed in a way that is visually appealing and doesn't detract from the overall look of the room. For example, you can choose switches and receptacles that match the color of the walls or trim. Thirdly, consider the safety of the switches and receptacles. They should be installed in a way that is safe and prevents electrical hazards. For example, receptacles should be tamper-resistant to prevent children from inserting objects into the slots. In addition to the standard mounting heights, there are also some specific requirements for receptacles in certain locations. For example, receptacles in bathrooms must be ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, protected. GFCI protection helps to prevent electric shock by quickly cutting off the power if a ground fault is detected. Receptacles in kitchens that serve countertops must also be GFCI protected. In addition to GFCI protection, receptacles in kitchens must also be located so that no point along the countertop is more than 24 inches or 61 centimeters from a receptacle. This requirement helps to ensure that there are enough receptacles to meet the needs of the kitchen and that people don't have to use extension cords. Extension cords can be a fire hazard if they are overloaded or used improperly. When installing receptacles, it's important to use the correct wiring methods. The NEC specifies the types of wiring that are allowed for different applications. It's also important to use the correct size of wire for the circuit. The size of the wire is determined by the amount of current that the circuit will carry. If you use a wire that is too small, it can overheat and cause a fire. When making electrical connections, it's important to use the correct connectors. The NEC specifies the types of connectors that are allowed for different applications. It's also important to make sure that the connections are tight and secure. Loose connections can cause arcing, which can create heat and start a fire. When installing electrical equipment, it's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions. The manufacturer's instructions will provide you with information on how to install the equipment safely and correctly. It's also important to use the correct tools for the job. Using the wrong tools can damage the equipment or cause injury. If you're not comfortable working with electricity, it's always best to consult a qualified electrician. They can provide you with guidance and ensure that the work is done safely and correctly. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it's important to take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure that your electrical work is safe and compliant. Additionally, consider future needs. When deciding on the placement of outlets and switches, think about how the space might be used in the future. Adding extra outlets in anticipation of future needs can save time and money later on. For instance, in a home office, consider installing extra outlets for computers, printers, and other electronic devices. In a living room, think about the placement of furniture and where lamps and other accessories might be placed. Also, consider the height of furniture when determining the height of outlets. For example, if you have a high sofa, you may want to install the outlet slightly higher than the standard 12 inches or 30 centimeters to make them more accessible. When installing outlets near sinks, be sure to follow the NEC requirements for GFCI protection. GFCI outlets are designed to protect against electrical shock in wet locations. It is also important to use weatherproof covers for outlets that are installed outdoors. Weatherproof covers protect the outlets from rain, snow, and other elements. When installing switches, consider the type of switch that is needed for the application. There are different types of switches available, such as single-pole switches, three-way switches, and dimmer switches. Single-pole switches are used to control a light or other device from a single location. Three-way switches are used to control a light or other device from two locations. Dimmer switches are used to control the brightness of a light. When installing switches, be sure to use the correct wiring methods. The NEC specifies the types of wiring that are allowed for different types of switches. It is also important to use the correct size of wire for the circuit. When making electrical connections, be sure to use the correct connectors and make sure that the connections are tight and secure. In addition to the NEC requirements, there may also be local electrical codes that you need to follow. Be sure to check with your local building department to find out what the requirements are in your area. If you are not sure about any aspect of electrical work, it is always best to consult a qualified electrician. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is important to take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure that your electrical work is safe and compliant. When choosing electrical boxes for switches and receptacles, select the appropriate size and type for the wiring and devices being installed. Ensure that the boxes are securely mounted to the wall studs or other structural members. Use appropriate cable clamps or connectors to secure the wiring to the boxes and protect the wires from damage. When running wiring through walls, floors, or ceilings, follow the NEC guidelines for protecting the wiring from physical damage. Use conduit or other protective measures where necessary. Avoid running wiring through areas where it could be exposed to moisture or chemicals. Label all circuits clearly at the electrical panel to identify the purpose of each circuit. This will make it easier to troubleshoot problems in the future. Keep electrical panels accessible and free from obstructions. Do not block access to the panel with furniture or other items. Regularly inspect electrical wiring and devices for signs of damage or wear. Replace any damaged or worn wiring or devices immediately. Have a qualified electrician inspect your electrical system periodically to ensure that it is safe and functioning properly. Consider installing surge protection devices to protect your electronic equipment from power surges. Surge protection devices can help to prevent damage to computers, televisions, and other sensitive electronic devices. When working with electricity, always be aware of the potential hazards and take the necessary precautions to protect yourself and others. Electricity can be dangerous, but by following these safety guidelines, you can help to prevent accidents. Always remember to energize the circuit before working on any electrical wiring or devices. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is de-energized before touching any wires or terminals. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as insulated gloves and safety glasses. Work in a well-lit area and avoid working in wet or damp conditions. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, consult a qualified electrician. In summary, the standard mounting heights for electrical switches and receptacles are important guidelines to ensure accessibility, aesthetics, and safety. Remember to always consult local codes and prioritize safety when performing any electrical work.